Dan Murray is a former US military lawyer who represented David Hicks. He's written a memoir on that time called In the Company of Cowards, and he joins us now from Perth. Dan, thanks for talking to us. The conviction has been set aside by the court. What exactly does that mean?
That basically means as if there's never been a trial process and his record is cleared and his case closed.
Why did it take so long to work this out?
Well, look, it took, unfortunately, there were several other cases that were challenging the same issue. And honestly, the federal courts in the U.S. move slowly, and it can take many years to get this accomplished. And that's too bad when people's lives are at risk.
So is the issue here that the laws that they tried to charge him under did not exist at the time, that if he had been caught in the same situation at a later time when the anti-terror laws were brought in, he could have been charged with those laws?
Well, look, it wasn't a crime under Australian law, international law, or U.S. law at the time. And I'm not quite so sure it would violate the anti-terrorism laws right now. You know, the real legacy issue here is why did Australia government at the time, Howard, Downer, and Ruddock, why did they accept a court system that the U.S. and the U.K. did not accept for their citizens? You know, to me, it was always about the process, and it was standing up for an Australian, and they deserved the same rights as an American or a British citizen. I don't understand how Howard at the time could accept some second-class standard of justice for an Australian, and that's what offended me.
So, Dan, do you think in retrospect you should have not pleaded guilty?
I don't know. I think the fastest way out of Guantanamo was the best decision anyone could make. And I'm not sure that Hicks could have survived another 4 or 5 years sitting in Guantanamo challenging this.
And so far, Dan, it seems David Hicks won't be applying for financial compensation. I'm just wondering, can you tell us about the history in the US of whether or not people are awarded compensation for being held in similar circumstances?
There's been a lot of actions in the U.S. Over the torture memos and detention at Guantanamo, and those cases have not gone anywhere.
Dan, what about the former Prime Minister John Howard's statement that he released today? He said he's not owed an apology. He said the US verdict's about the legal process in that country. Nothing alters the fact that, by his own admission, Hicks trained with al-Qaeda.
You know, how can we be talking about what was supposed to be a criminal case and not say that the legal parts don't matter? I mean, the fact was the Howard government knew and was told, warned, specifically by 10 independent legal experts, I believe, one being the former Judge Advocate General for the Australian Defence Forces, that this was not a valid crime. And a crime that they just chose to ignore at that point and push the U.S. to try him in an illegal system before made-up charges. I just don't understand how that could happen. And maybe I'm, looking at it too much through an American eyes where America would not tolerate it for its citizens. And I just don't think that Australians aren't deserving the same sort of someone to fight for them on this issue.
Well, Dan, maybe it was because they considered him to be an enemy combatant. He was found in Afghanistan. He was found to have been training with al-Qaeda. Maybe they wanted him charged and prosecuted.
You're saying the same thing the U.S. said about its citizens, but it didn't let him go to Gitmo or go before military commissions. You're saying the same thing the British government said about its citizens, but you know what? Their citizens got out of Gitmo and they weren't charged on this made-up, fabricated system of made-up charges. I mean, this is basic, fundamental due process. And when you stand up for people's rights, you may not be doing it for people that everybody loves. And you can read Hicks's book if you want to know what he did over there. But the reality is that when you stand up for people, it's based on values and principles that you hold, not on each particular case. And I didn't understand why the Australian government would not stand up for an Australian citizen, the same way the British and the U.S. governments did.